is the Unseen Pub number 8, and have at it. If you want to join us, we have plenty more seats at the bar. If you want to join us, just you can hit through the chat, and we will on YouTube, and we will be let you in, because I mean, we have I could let at least 5 more people in. So by all means. Also, the link has been posted on Google Plus and Facebook and Twitter, and also be monitoring Twitter at using the tag UPub8. So if at Podcast Unseen. So if you want to throw in some snark that way, feel free. Okay. Now we're talking about. Oh, by the way, we do cuss sometimes. It's mostly Patrick, but. Patrick, tell us again about how much you admire President Trump.
Patrick has taken off for a moment. He has to relieve himself.
He had to vent his spleen, I think. He'd already been doing that, actually.
I believe the entire nation has been doing that for the past year.
Yeah, well, I'm on record as not being a fan of the guy, but I am very opposed to any departure from due process in terms of removing him from office. I will say that. So let's see how that shakes out. My wife watches MSNBC almost every night, where they cling to every little thread of oh, this is what Trump did wrong. This in this particular date on this particular year, and
they have a bad case of Trump derangement syndrome.
Well, I mean, it's not so much that; it's just that they have this dire hope that something will show up that he could be impeached on, and maybe it will. But boy, they're really pulling those threads hard.
Something will turn up, just like Mr. McCarver and Dickens.
Yeah, but if you watch, what's her name? Who's that? The woman who's on MSNBC. I can't.
Maddow?
What? Rachel Maddow. Yeah, I was thinking. She loves to get on one little clue that's just come out today, right? And she pulls on that and said, "Well, this could be that, and this could be that, and this could be that." And like Vladimir Putin is sleeping in the Lincoln bedroom, and the next.
Completely unlike some of the people Mike likes to follow the exploits of.
Well, yeah. Well, those people are delusional in a different way.
Yeah.
Is it different though? Isn't there a basis in cognitive bias for the various ways that these there's played out in different ways, very different ways in political realms or in pseudo history or pseudo archaeology realms and things like this, but isn't it the same cluster of really strong cognitive biases that subject us to this kind of derangement and getting off the topic?
I think it may be. It's just that some people have a college education, so they're better at it. And Alex Jones's followers certainly don't. So they
take us deeper down the rabbit hole. In other words,
yeah. Well,
is that a good thing?
Yeah. Well, they dig a far more complex rabbit hole.
Yeah. I don't know. It's who believes. The people that will believe it. When I start, I've been trying to with all this conspiracy stuff hitting the news. There's these little side stories about, studies about, cognitive bias and all the, who actually believes in it. And, there doesn't seem to be, I mean, at least from the studies I've been seeing, it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're,
right.
if you're
from the huge fraction of the American populace that it's not like,
and
it's not like a bias that a flawed subset are susceptible to. It's I think, as Nick was saying, it's a more fundamental aspect of at least an American cognitive identity.
Yeah,
it does seem to be particularly American, though. That I have Well, there's some other countries that are also very conspiratorial, but America is pretty special in this regard.
I've been given to understand that the Middle Eastern countries, that conspiracy theories are just way out of
Turkey. I've heard that about Turkey. Definitely.
Well, I've also heard about it further down the Arabian Peninsula. Well, that's Turkey's Anatolia, but that because the official news services are so twisted and so distorted, people seize on any little fragment of information they get, and then they ramp it up into something, you know, completely whack job. And it gets widely believed because the information available in the countries is so poor in its quality. And when you have access to really good sources of information where people can dig down and find something substantive, I think you get a little bit less of that. I'm not going to die. That's not the hill I'm going to die on. But I think good quality sources of information can certainly make a difference.
Well, that's just it. You know, it seems like Fox News has infiltrated Turkey, but the thing is that once they dig into the stupidity of the people, when the real stuff comes out, it's like they don't know what to believe anymore. And unfortunately, unlike some, you know, semi-intelligent people like myself, you know, who have a built-in bullshit detector, you know, they don't see, and that's the problem in America. They you know, the brainwashing has taken effect over the last several decades, where people are just sheeple, and the reasonable people, the atheists, and the people who are actually have a brain on their shoulders, like Nick and stuff like that, you know, and people who are willing to listen to people who are supposedly more intelligent than themselves. Like, for example, there are not that many people out there that can say, I look up to this person because I hear him. He sounds like he's more intelligent than me. I do that to Nick. You know, I think Nick is like my professor. You know, for people you're more than welcome, because it takes that kind of attitude. It takes that kind of like understanding that nobody's calling you an idiot. They're just saying that, you know, there are some things that you know, you have to admit to yourself what you don't know, and how you're not as good at certain things. But these people are just like, oh no, you know, I've been around for 35 years, and I you know, it's all fake news, you know, like as soon as the president of the United States says it's fake news, it must be, because I'm a fucking sheeple. It makes me sick. It's the flat earth thing. It's the sickening dumbing down of people. It's been going on for thousands of years. This is what religion's about. They control the people by dumbing them down, and this is going on right now.
I've been thinking about the role of public intellectuals, specifically in Western civilization, over the past few decades, and how we went through an almost blank spot, or a dead zone, as it were. And this is related to what Patrick said, because a successful public intellectual is somebody that people actually look up to for their moral or their intellectual authority, and not because they hold some office or something like that. So obviously during the late 60s, there were a lot of public intellectuals, and they were all extreme far left. You know, the aged Sartre was a Maoist, and then
but there's also Bill Buckley, right?
Yeah, but I don't think
Milton Friedman, Ayn Rand.
That's true, but and Ayn Rand had some fanatical followers, but they didn't come out in the streets like the people with the signs for Marcuse, Marx, and the other M's. I can't remember. There were 4 M's in the late 60s. You know,
but those right wing guys also weren't advocating
overthrowing the system.
Their intellectual program was intrinsically less radical, right? I
so
mean,
would you say that Buckley had the moral and intellectual authority?
I think he was a total douchebag. No, I don't think he had any.
But whether or not he was a douchebag, did people look to him as an intellectual authority?
I think after he published God and Man at Yale, I think he did. For, you know, he had some clout. But
okay, maybe so. I couldn't name you. I was focusing on figures of the far left who dominated European intellectual life up to 1968, the student rebellions.
mm-hmm.
And then you have in the 80s, who was the guy who wrote The Closing of the American Mind? He became briefly Alan Bloom became briefly a very big deal, but it didn't last very long, maybe 2 years or something like that. And now we have Jordan Peterson in 1 year rocketed up from being little known to being extremely well known and being on every TV talk show in the Western world. But I think in the earlier stages of the 20th century, we had more, we can go back, more public intellectuals, because we can go back earlier to the teens, the 20s, and the 30s, and there's people like Bertrand Russell, and he had his nemesis as well. Bertrand Russell would represent the far left of the public intellectual spectrum, but there were other people who represented the right, but I don't think they came up to his stature. But I don't think we have as many public intellectuals who are willing to talk about difficult things, at least for the past couple of decades. In the late 20th century, early 21st century, I don't think we've had that as much, although we may get it back again because of the willingness to hold people to hold long, complex conversations on YouTube, because you can watch hangouts on YouTube like this that go on for 1 or 2 or 3 hours.
Well, there was the totally unclassifiable Christopher Hitchens.
Yeah.
Well,
was he left or right? I don't know, but
Well, yeah, he's unclassifiable. Just like Sam Harris has almost made himself unclassifiable because he's coming from a very bourgeois liberal background, but in his criticism of Islam, that has put him in cahoots with people who have nothing to do with that bourgeois liberal background.
That's like me. I have no idea what left and right even means anymore. I don't even care. It's labels. But when you have, you can just stop and think, what are your common moral instincts? The things you think about when you have children, for example, things like this. There is a total lack of moral understanding with our current president. All he wants to do is to claim everything that's happening as to his doing, and he doesn't care if a bunch of kids just die. He doesn't care about separating family. He has no apathy whatsoever. He has no sense of moral whatsoever. Now, there is a common sense human morality, which means that I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist, but this person is some kind of sociopath. He has no business into being our president. A president is supposed to be somebody who is the leader.
Well, there are no supposed tos when it comes to politicians, Patrick. I mean, you really should be more cynical.
No, I'm sorry, but
it's what it takes to get elected. It's not what it takes to be a good leader.
There should be a test, and there should be an application. Just like I apply for a job, which I've jobs that I never got hired for. There should be an application. Are you? What are your thoughts on this, and what are your thoughts on that? A kind of application for being a president.
But a lot of the perfectly respectable.
And President Trump has no doubt, in my mind, would have failed even the simplest application whatsoever.
Well, I agree with you on part of that. I mean, the totally unclassifiable Penduletta said, who knows Trump, who said he has no moral center, whatever. And I believe that. He's also got really no ideological center either. He's
how does he get away with this shit? We have a president.
Well, that question is not a question for Trump. That's a question for everybody else.
we have a president who was impeached or threatened to be impeached, and he had to resign or whatever on a sex scandal that had to do with getting a blowjob in the Oval Office or something.
Clinton was impeached by the House of Representatives,
who's being sued by a fucking prostitute. Or at least they no, sorry,
a porn star.
A porn star. Sorry,
Clinton was impeached, but he wasn't tried by the Senate, or he was tried by the Senate.
Is that there's a double standard here. There's a double standard. There's obviously the Republicans, or I should say the current Republicans, because the Republicans never used to be like this. There used to be a different story, You know, there's
I
I'm not
agree.
going to get into that. I'm not going to get into that. But the current Republicans right now are a bunch of fucking scumbags. In other words, what goes for them is good, and if the Democrats did the same thing, they're all scum. They're a bunch of white supremacist scum of the earth, pieces of shit who are controlling the fucking White House. Is what's going on.
Well, okay. Thank you for that deep analysis, Patrick.
This is the pub, man. This isn't the unseen.
I know you can cuss all you want. I don't care about that. But some of it, for example, but why, you shouldn't judge on the basis of people's choices of sex life. If Stormy Daniels has chosen to use her sexuality the way she has, then I don't feel.
I'm not judging her. I'm judging Donald Jerkoff Trump.
A very interesting thing I learned today about Stormy Daniels. Her lawyer is the same guy who worked for the guys who sent the Hulk Hogan sex tape to Gawker in an effort to blackmail Hulk Hogan. Apparently, his whole business model, his whole law practice revolves around trying to find people with compromising sexual information and then try to.
Well, I'm sure he has more work than he can handle. Then.
Yeah.
I mean, I got unintentionally embroiled in the Lawrence Krauss issue, and
I've pointedly avoided trying to learn what he's accused of or anything,
Well,
I read part of the letter that he posted.
Yeah, basically, what he's accused of is making inappropriate advances, which is not the same thing as sexual assault, right? It's just a lot of unwanted advances and sort of what people would call sexual harassment, and that landed a lot of other people in trouble. It's not as bad as the Harvey Weinstein thing, but it's still for someone who wants respectability as a public intellectual, it does really cause a problem.
Well,
now. Michael Schumer survived that, but
these have to be
problems. And yet, here's Donald Trump's talking on the bus about grabbing women's pussies, and people are cheering him for this. What the fuck?
Well, Patrick, I got news for you. If you're a successful billionaire and you're the most powerful person in the world, you can grab women by the pussy and they're okay with it. It's just if you're nobody and you have no money that it's a problem.
Well, see,
I shouldn't say not every woman's going to be okay with that.
Society that gets upset with public intellectuals who sexually harass people are not Trump voters anyway. So I think your complaint is sort of a non sequitur.
Public intellectuals that are accused of making advances because there are no police reports.
It's a double standard. This is what I'm trying to get at. In other words,
it's just different sets of the society care about different things.
Getting away with everything he can do.
The people who vote for Trump don't care about that stuff, and people like Patrick do care about that stuff. It's not a double standard. It's just a different set of people.
And Trump himself said he could stand in the middle of the street and fire a gun, and people would still vote for it. And he turned out to be right.
And yet,
I think you could. Because
imagine if Obama had ever said any one of these 10,000 things that Trump had said. He would have been ostracized, beetleized, and who knows what.
No, not by his space, not by his supporters.
Not by his supporters.
What I'm trying to say is
and Clinton got away with a lot of crap. You know that.
This is an obvious double standard. This is obviously what's going on here is an injustice.
Well, like Paul said,
the double standard is double-edged.
You have to be more cynical about politics because there's always a double standard in politics. The people who are in power pervert institutions to their own ends, and then when they get out of power, then the other people try to flip the script on them and then use the institutions to their own ends.
Dick, I've always been a believer in what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And the current GOP is apparently thinking that's not true.
Yeah, but the current GOP
our Teen Titans.
But that's just like a cipher
I'm
these
going
days.
to kick those fucking assholes out of office.
Trump, you have to make distinctions. Trump doesn't even represent the GOP. He is a standalone populist candidate. He doesn't represent either the traditional religious.
He represents the fucking child molesting pieces of shit, scum of the earth, hunt rags that are out there.
He doesn't
What,
represent
the Catholic Church?
And apparently, yeah, and then too. And apparently, there's a lot more of them out there than we thought, because he got voted into office because of that.
He doesn't represent the country club Republicans. He doesn't represent the religious evangelicals. These people have voted for him, and they jumped on the Trump chain to get power while he's in office. But then he's not part of them, and they're not part of him.
Well, I want to slap all those people in the face. I'm glad.
Well, you got a lot of faces to slap, Patrick. Better get started.
I'm glad they realize it. I'm glad that some of those people are realizing their stupidity, but I want to slap them anyway.
Patrick, this is not stupidity.
I want to slap them saying, "I told you so."
You will find people in that camp who have higher IQs than you do.
Probably,
but
you also find some pretty morally odious people on the Never Trump side, like Bill Kristol. You know, like.
You will find, yeah. I mean, it's not simple, right?
No, it's not simple. I mean, I've told people a million times, I'm a nice guy, but you don't want me to become president because I wouldn't know what the fuck to do. But that doesn't make.
My teenage daughter asked both my wife and I a question tonight while we were watching Trevor Noah. She said, "If you could remove Trump of office, but you would have to be president for the rest of his term, would you do it?" I think my wife was not too sure.
I'm not too sure. If you're asking me that question, I would say that I would immediately surround myself with people that I trust, or at least I understood that were more intelligent than I. One of the first people I would talk to is Gary Kasparov.
Who is he?
I would do it in a heartbeat, and I think Trump actually has proved that there are worse things than the president not getting that much done. Right? You could just sit there in the Oval Office, eat cake, and hope, try to hope this stuff mostly works itself out.
It's actually mostly McDonald's. I don't think he eats cake, but chicken nuggets.
I would just spend all day, if I were president, I'd spend all day just reading classified documents, just trying to, secrets, all the UFOs.
I would too, but that's because, no one would elect me.
I'd have to ask a lot of questions. I'd have to seek out people to know, and I have to ask them questions, and I'd have to say, well, let's do this. For example, obviously the DACA thing is a big thing for me. I would say I want to get this done, but I would be talking to Bernie Sanders. I would be talking to a lot of people that are or fervent on this subject, and I would be kind of like. I would be the puppet president, I would be like having people tell me what to do, but at the same time, I'd be like asking the right people. Because
or you could just go full Stalin.
I'm not smart enough.
Habeas corpus, throw all your enemies in the gulag.
I'm not smart enough to really understand it all, but I'm sure as hell a lot more moral and smarter than Trump. I could spell the word, whatever word he doesn't know how to spell today, But nevertheless, I'm not a politician, but I would be seeking out the people who I think are on the right side of the morality.
So the answer is you would take the deal.
I would take the deal if I can be promised that I would have people around me to help me out.
Yeah, look, let's be honest. If you took the deal, you get to restart the nuclear propelled rocket program. So that's worth it just for that.
I don't know anything about that.
That would be one of my first acts. Would bring up.
I would do it literally the first day. I mean,
well, the first somebody came up to me and said something to me about that, I would say, "What the fuck are you talking about?" and let me know about it.
No, I think Sam's right on about that.
I would have to be schooled,
Yeah, I would have a head of NASA within a week.
Yeah,
I would hire Nick as one of my advisors, by the way.
Right, which Trump can't seem to get that together at all.
My first advisor
would be elevated to a cabinet level organization.
No, my first advisor would be Nick. Definitely.
I could be Steve Bannon to Patrick's Trump.
Yeah, you'd be out in a few months, Nick.
The thing is, Nick tends to quote. Nick often quotes philosophers more obscure than the ones that Dennis quotes.
Maybe you should drink more.
Nick, I promise not to fire you. No, it's really a fucking, you know, seriously though, it's really a sickening world we live in today. It makes me sick, but I am encouraged by our current teenagers.
Well, you know, I really think we can ride out the Trump storm better than some people think, as long as he doesn't start a freaking war, either a trade war or a military war.
Well, that's just it. Is he, you know, we don't really know if that's going to happen. He's definitely doing things that are scary.
Well, the trade war scares me because that could be total disaster.
Right.
Economically, it could take us years and years to recover from that.
You're starting to
and as someone who's trying to nurture his retirement fund forward, that's not good news. But hopefully that's just a blip. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. By the way, real quick, you're starting to buzz again. You're starting to.
Well, I've had a whole bottle of wine.
No.
Okay. I hear Paul dropping out every few seconds.
You know, like
I am having issues, but I'm afraid to drop out and kill the hangout.
I just want to say that real quick. I didn't mean to interrupt the conversation.
You were the conversation, Patrick.
Yeah, I'm 58 years old and I've never seen anything like this. I'm flabbergasted, and I was getting to the point where I was giving up. I was like, you know, if I had money, which I don't, you know, I'm on fucking welfare and shit, I'd be getting out of this fucking lame country. But
where would you go?
But I don't know. But these teenagers,
New Zealand's popular.
But these teenagers recently have revived my faith in humanity.
What would be your what would be the conditions you would look for in a nation state to which you would prefer to move?
I mean, I'm thinking Australia, because I can't stand cold. You know, Canada is wonderful, but I can't stand the cold. It's too cold.
You would prefer Justin Trudeau?
Yeah, I would prefer living in a place where it's a lot warmer, you know. But as far as weather is concerned, but you know, there's good things about Australia. There's good things about all kinds of things. But anyway, I don't know. I'm just glad that I didn't have to go. And again, I'm going to reiterate that these kids have reinvigorated my faith in humanity. So go Teen Titans. That's all I can say. I could play a song right now, but I know that this is a live broadcast and I don't want to do any copyright issue problems.
So earlier tonight, Patrick mentioned the passing of Stephen Hawking. I wonder what the best conspiracy theories about how he managed to live so long with ALS are.
You're asking me? I don't.
I'm really asking Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Actually,
I was going to say fuck you on the conspiracy theories.
I haven't seen anything. The only thing I heard about him living so long was that he may not have had ALS.
Right, that's a reasonable hypothesis, although
yeah,
not particularly consistent with Occam's razor.
Right.
But
right.
No, I don't even want to go to the conspiracy theory bullshit.
Yeah.
Except that the man managed to give us an amazing. I read the book. It came out in 1988. I think I might have read it in 1989. A Brief History in Time, or A Brief History of Time. Which is it? Anyway,
Of Time. A Brief History of Time.
Okay. I no longer have that book in my possession. With the divorce and everything, the book disappeared. But I may actually be looking to find.
You're in the 1% of purchasers who read it.
Yeah, it was a long time ago, and I certainly don't remember thinking about it. But I'm thinking about going about and going and buy another copy of it just for the sake of having it.
I mean, I suspect it's probably out of date.
Yeah,
probably rather severely so.
There are things about it that I think I remember. I'm not going to get into detail because my memory is vague. That had been disputed or
Well, in particular, inflation. I don't think much of the theory of inflation has been worked out.
The point is that this man went through. I mean, the doctors gave him several months or a couple of years to live, and he lived 50 years beyond that, and it's amazing.
Right. The reason I brought it up was that these sorts of medical miracles. That's like a I mean that's good fodder for conspiracy.
He fought to stay alive. He died at 76, but he fought to stay alive, and he had a sense of humor. He was obviously on the cartoons, Simpsons and the other cartoon. He made cameo appearances.
Futurama.
Was it? I forget now, but I know he was on the Simpsons. The point is, the man had sense of humor, and he was he did that sort of thing. The
best quote I heard was from an obituary one of his colleagues wrote in Bloomberg. He was talking about why his condition was an advantage, and he had one good reason, which was that he couldn't write stuff down, so he had to really focus on the essentials of the theories he was working on, which was probably intellectually helpful. But his funnier reason why it was an advantage was that nobody expected him to serve on faculty committees.
I apologize for not even knowing this kid's name. I say kid, but he's actually an adult. While Stephen Hawking was transitioning into the point where he couldn't talk anymore, he went into the wheelchair, and those years that he was going into the wheelchair kind of thing, he had a student who was his caretaker or caregiver or partial caregiver. I'm not sure exactly how the thing went, but he was actually translating for Stephen Hawking in some of the lectures, and I don't remember the young man's name. He was a student of Stephen Hawking, and there was I'm old enough to know to have seen the transition from Stephen Hawking going from being able to talk for himself to having to have a computer talk for him. And there was a young student. There was a documentary. There was a one of those science show documentaries where this young student was doing the talking for him, and he was the only one that was able to understand him before the computer voice was speaking for him. This young student of his was talking for him, and he understood him. And I apologize for not remembering his name.
I saw a video of that, so I know what you're talking about, but I don't know the guy's name either.
Yeah, I apologize for not knowing his name. He should be he should be known, and I apologize for not knowing. While you're Googling that, I'm going to go get myself another glass of wine.
Well, look, it's actually still day in Portland, isn't it? Oh,
yeah. Yeah. With the time change, you can see a little bit. It's twilight now, but it's not dark yet.
Yeah. I would have moved back to the West Coast, I have to tell you, but we're kind of stuck here for now.
You didn't grow up there, did you?